Yeah, we talk to our guys all the time. I'm like, you got to watch more basketball. If you want to be a mid-major player and you're not watching mid-major basketball on TV at night, how do you know what it looks like? How do you know how physical it is? How do you know the speed of the game, or how many different sets, or how many different kind of uh, concepts that a team might have to guard a ball screen, or any of that, play post defense, whatever it is, you've got to spend some time watching the game and studying it and understanding it. And
There he is.
what's up?
What's up, Coach?
How you doing today?
Good, man. Thank you so much for making this work with the meetings that you've had, and I can't imagine how busy college coaches are all the time. So I appreciate it.
It's all good. It's all for a good cause and the right reasons. So I'm excited to join you and spend some time.
I'll tell you, we've never had, I don't think, any interaction, face to face or anything. But I did attend the Link camp at Duncanville Fieldhouse. This
Okay.
was, oh man, when was that? Was that in the fall or
Yeah.
the fall? And
Yeah.
and I brought my stepson to it. My wife was there, and we happened to sit in the crowd when, I mean, one, thank you to the Gasso guys for creating that kind of opportunity where college coaches can work with and talk to high school players and parents get to listen. And one of my favorite questions to ask coaches is, what's something you've borrowed lately? And the thing that I borrowed from you was in your speech to the parents. It was brilliant. You said players need to figure out what level of play loves them, and they need to find a way to love them back. And coach, I just thought that was brilliant, man. That was awesome.
I think my experience from just so many years of being in junior college and having my guys recruited every year is just watching them succeed when they leave, and just how important the right level is. If you get to the wrong level, then you're unhappy. You're not growing. You're not getting better. You're not. One of the things we talk about is we want our guys to become the best versions of themselves,
Hmm.
and you can't do that when you're unhappy. You can't do that when you're in the wrong place. And so, coming to terms with what your best level is, coming to terms with who's loving you the most, that kind of gives you a really good feel of that's the level you need to go play at.
And I think you're right on the money. It's always tough as a high school coach when you're having those conversations with a player or all the stakeholders in their lives, which happens to be a lot of times their family, could be select coaches too. But when we sit down and we say, okay, who's reached out to you? What coaches have, and they are, let's just say, at the D3 level, and that's where the majority or all of them are, and there's only a couple or a few. To hear them say, wow, we just really want something better, or we're waiting for something a little bit higher. It's hard. I mean, we got to be truth tellers, but what your statement is, we've got to have our eyes open to, okay, who has seen us and thought, yes, like the way you play at your athleticism, at your height, that'll work at our school, in our program. And then, man, the gratitude that we should have for the
Yeah.
fact that somebody actually paid attention to me and wants to play. But there's always this, and maybe it's human nature. I want what I don't have, or I'm comparing myself to others. But, Coach, what advice do you have for us talking to these high school kids?
I think, one of the things we try to share with our guys, and I think there's a little bit of a gap here, is, every level you go up, every time you decide to go from NAI to D2, or D2 to Division 1, and then the different levels of Division 1, it's a business. And each one of those businesses is spending a lot of money per se compared to the resources that they have and the league and the level that they're playing at, that they're investing a lot in you. And I think the kids don't understand today how competitive each scholarship is
Hmm.
and how much it is. And so we try to help our guys understand just, um, you know, we're feeding a multi-million dollar business because, probably fortunately, most of our guys have gone Division 1 over the years. And so we're feeding a multi-million dollar business, and it may not be a multi-million dollar business at Kilgore College because we don't have those kinds of resources, but we've got to help them understand that when they make that next step, that they've got to be that type of person. They've got to be that type of player. They've got to be that type of student. They have to be a student and ready to tackle the just the day to day requirements or obligations that you have at whatever level you're going to continue to be successful. And if you haven't started developing those and have those in your repertoire already before you get there, you're going to fail for a while, or you're going to slow the growth process, and it's going to keep you from playing or keep you from growing, or it's just going to make life a little bit more difficult. So, the old cliche of you got to be a champion before you can, you got to act like a champion before you can be a champion. I mean, there's some value to that. There's some things in that kids have got to understand. I've got to be that and represent that every day, and work hard and learn every day at that level before I can actually be that person.
Hmm. Yeah, we tell our guys a lot about how basketball and any sport or any level where or anything that you're doing where you can move up, it's a game of musical chairs. So like at our school, there are let's just say 12 varsity spots. Well, we've got 35 high school players. It's it's competitive, but like you got a good chance, like a pretty good percentage that if you're athletically and skill wise and fit the culture, like you got a chance that you can make that team every year. Well, golly, like that game moving from JV to varsity, from varsity to the next level, it's like one chair with 75 dudes walking around it. And when that music stops, only one gets that chair.
Yeah.
At that point, like one, again, I go back to gratitude. Instead of, man, I wish I had more people looking at me, or I wish I had something better. Who's looking at you? And then really investigate their school, their style of play, and be thankful, grateful that someone wants your career to keep going.
Absolutely. I just think kids growth is so important right now in their lives, in everybody's life. Whether you're 52 years old like I am, or whether you're 18 or 19 years old like those guys are. And so anytime you can put yourself in an environment where growth can happen, you're using the word gratitude. You need to be thankful. You need to be appreciative, and you need to jump on it and really try to use it to your advantage to get yourself farther down your path to becoming the best version of you that you can become.
Coach, with the portal right now and how many bodies are in it, and it's only going to continue to grow, in my opinion, what is the best path or idea for high school players to, especially those that aren't in that top 100 in the country, where they don't really have to worry about that as much? And then how does junior college basketball fit into that?
I think it fits in there big time right now. I think that there's such a bottleneck at the top right now, and the reason being the portal slowing the recruiting process down. We still have guys in fifth year of college because of COVID. I
Yep.
think the way we've pushed that out in our calendar, I think that ends in the spring of 2025. The last group of fifth year COVID people can go through. I think there are changes in the portal with the recent adoption of the new rule that you can't, they're going to make it really difficult to get in a second time and get a waiver. I
Hmm.
think that particular rule, and I think the fifth year kids moving on are going to clean up the portal a little bit. It won't be quite the number that it's gotten to maybe the last couple years because of everybody's jumping in it. Um, I think it's really slowed recruiting down in general. Our guys are still, I've got, we were fortunate and had probably one of the top 5 junior college players in the country this year. Our point guard's going to Cincinnati. So, of course, he was really well recruited from a lot of different high major programs. But beyond that, we still have guys that are looking themselves. And so I know high school guys are. And the big push at the Division I level is to get older guys and get
Yeah.
experienced guys and that have been through it. So high school's kind of, if you don't get picked early in the fall, you're going to have to find a level that loves you, and you're going to have to try to use that level to get some experience and then understand that that experience could turn into different opportunities. And the discouraging thing, I don't know if I'd say discouraging, but the interesting thing that's making Division I basketball is it's becoming junior college. I mean, you're going to redo your roster every year.
Yeah.
You're going to have some people that get out. You're going to have 6 or 7 scholarships open as opposed to 2 or 3 some years because of the portal. And so guys are having to do a lot more. I'm calling it roster management, I
Mm.
guess, than they have in the past. And I think that's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be really interesting. I look at conference standings just about every Sunday, especially after Christmas, because our guys are getting recruited by those schools. And so I want to know what the conferences look like. I want to know what the race looks like. I want to know, what teams are having what kind of years. And I saw more teams this year than ever right around the 500 level. There were
Mm.
fewer and fewer elite teams and fewer, teams that just really had bad years or struggled. And there were so many 14 and 16, 16 and 14, 15 and 15. There was just an enormous amount of people. And I think some of that is our coaches are adjusting to the portal. And how do you create culture? How do you create a world where those guys will come in and unselfishly commit themselves to a team?
Wow. That's good. I would imagine that for a high school player, especially again, those that aren't already as sophomores and juniors receiving offers or getting notice, for the majority of players, things like that link camp that the Gasso did, where you literally get an opportunity to be coached by and work with college coaches that in a year or two could be calling your name, like could be interested. I mean, I would imagine those things are pretty important now, right?
I think so. I think anytime you can put yourself in an environment where you can get a little bit more understanding of what the next level is going to be like. Like you said this earlier, and it's one of my favorite things right now. You got to tell the truth. You've got to tell kids the truth. You've got to tell their parents the truth, and they've got to understand their path in the path that they're on and how they can change their path if they can work harder, or if they can work smarter, or if they can, whatever it is that they can do. And so I think anytime you can put yourself in an environment like, we want some of our freshmen to take some unofficial visits, hopefully this spring, and go visit some Division I campuses so that they can maybe play some pickup with those guys, just simply so they can understand what that level looks like. And yeah, we talk to our guys all the time. I'm like, you got to watch more basketball. If you want to be a mid-major player and you're not watching mid-major basketball on TV at night, how do you know what it looks like? How do you know how physical it is? How do you know the speed of the game, or how many different sets, or how many different kind of concepts that a team might have to guard a ball screen, or any of that, play post defense, whatever it is, you've got to spend some time watching the game and studying it and understanding it. And I don't, as kids spend so much time on YouTube and all those different things right now. I just don't know if they spend enough time kind of studying their craft and understanding what's going to help them get better. And they just rely on the coaches to do that. And there's a lot we can do. But when you start teaching yourself and this is one of our biggest things in our program. When you get to college, you have to learn how to learn. College is not about regurgitating information anymore. It's learning how you learn best, how you can learn in different styles, and you have to learn how you learn, and then you got to be good at it. And so they've really got to start teaching themselves how to learn, and really start grasping the concepts of what they're going to see over the course of their basketball career.
The Jamodi podcast is powered by Sideline Interactive. Sideline Interactive is the leading manufacturer for high-quality, innovative scoring tables and LED video display boards that help coaches and schools bring more excitement to fans, create huge fundraising opportunities, and make their jobs easier. Visit sidelineinteractive.com to check out their amazing products.
So you've been college coaching or you've been a head coach for 23 years. Congratulations on that. That's incredible to be in the sport that you're in at that level, so competitive, and to figure out a way to last that long and to stick around and survive. What are some of the daily habits that set you up for success?
I think the biggest thing for us is we want constant improvement, and so I do too. You know, I get up in the mornings and I'm a reader. I get up in the day and try to start my day. I read a lot of different types of books. Most of it is leadership, basketball, things like that. I don't read a lot just for enjoyment per se, but I'm a studier. I like to study people. I like to study philosophies. So I do a lot of that early in the day. Spend some quiet time. We've got a spiritual background, and so spending time in the mornings doing that is important to me too. And then we try to create daily. We try to get our guys to create daily routines. So I have a daily routine, and during the season's different than the off season. During the off season, there's definitely more time put into preparation and studying and trying to change things within our program that we'd like to see or add or different things like that. We do a life circle with our guys a lot during the season, and so we're trying to add content to that and different things that we want them to learn and understand throughout the course of the year. So creating a daily routine, try to get some exercise when I can. I need it more during the season than I do in the off season, and I do it less during the season than I should. So trying to get back into that right now because the season just kind of came to a close, and those types of things. Try to spend as much quality time with my family as I can. I'm remarried. I have 3 kids from my first marriage. My wife has 2. All of our kids are either in college or out of college, and so we're kind of
Oh,
at
wow.
that out stage. But
Yeah.
just spending time with them, I've been very blessed. I don't know if you know this, Matt, but we've we've had 2 or 3 really really good years in a row here, and both of my boys have been a part of our program in different capacities during that stretch. And so my oldest son was a part of our first championship team and was a coach with our second championship team. My youngest son was around that first championship team and then was on the team, the second championship team. So having that much success with our family round has been, just a blessing and a lot of fun for them to experience it and me too. So just creating a routine would probably be my best answer, and everybody's different, so you've got to create your own routine and find ways to maximize your time.
What a great example of one of the questions I ask quite a bit is how do you balance basketball, coaching, and your lot and your family? How do you balance those two things? But I think a great way to look at it, and a lot of coaches do, like you said, is blending it. Like
Mm-hmm.
not trying to keep them separate and trying to keep both happy, but bring them together. That way, you're also spending the time. You're bringing them into the. I would imagine like you're the same. You just coaching is a part of who you are. It's not just a
Yeah,
job. It's just
yeah,
part of your life that you love doing. So bringing them in, that just makes a lot of sense to me.
yeah. We tell our guys all the time, discipline creates freedom. And so when you can really spend time, uh, you know, creating a good routine for yourself and getting into your work and getting your work done, then that creates your freedom. If it's the other way around, as a college athlete, then you are constantly procrastinating. You're constantly finding excuses to not get some of the work done that needs to be get done, whether it's academic or athletic. And so we really try to teach our guys to be disciplined in their habits and get up and get their things done early. And that creates the freedom at the end of the day or the weekends or things like that to do other things.
And you can apply that to your faith as well. The discipline in our faith and it ends up allowing us to have more freedom. When I look at the times of my life where I've lost control and things, everything just seems to be going bad. I'm in trouble. I'm making bad decisions. Well, most likely I'm lacking in discipline. And so that discipline, you're right, it right on the money. It creates more freedom, even though when you think I want to be free, I don't want discipline, you end up losing your freedom in that taking that path.
Absolutely.
Have you always been a reader, or is that something that you've picked up later on in your life?
No, definitely as I got older. I think the thing you find is, when you're young, when I was younger and we had young kids and things like that, my days were occupied by them.
Mm.
And you spend so much time wanting to be around them, help them go to bed, read to them, spend time with them, whatever it is. Reading becomes something that just kind of goes by the wayside and something you just can't get to within your daily routine. And as I've gotten older and my kids have gotten older and they want to spend less time with their dad as opposed to more time or whatever. They're busy in
Yeah.
their high school lives and they're running around. Then I've found more time to sit down and say, okay, this is something I enjoy. It's something that I want to spend time doing. And I really, really, I was. During COVID, it was just unbelievable because my
Mm.
routine during that stretch of time I mean, I was locked in, and so it was a good stretch of time for me to really have to make the most out of that stuff.
Had the opportunity to talk with Kevin Eastman, and he went through some of his tips or tricks to just getting the most out of what he was reading, and some things he'd highlight, and then I struggle. Like I go through a book and then just really holding on. I guess that comprehension, like holding on to the information, or using what I just read, longer or further on in my life. Any tips or tricks that you have to? I just read a book, but I can also use this information or tell people about it, just retain it better.
Oh, I think the biggest thing is to take notes, and then try, like we use this life circle. I've talked about it just a few minutes ago, and we have this life circle that we try to use our guys with. Well, I was reading over the last couple years at different times. I read What Drives Winning by Brett Ledbetter. He's got 4 books out that I highly recommend. And all 4 books have different things that we've borrowed from them
Hmm.
and then put into that life circle. And then once they were in that life circle, then we knew we were going to come back to them. We knew that this was going to be something that, okay, it's going to help us understand or help our players understand a concept or a philosophy or a way of life, or it's just something that we want them to have experience with and to be introduced to. We just put it in our life circle, and that way that we could go back, and then if we want to revisit it later on, we can pull it back out or whatever it is. And we do that quite a bit.
You mentioned that the D1s, the higher levels, are starting to feel a little bit more of what you feel from year to year, which is, brand new roster or a large majority of your players coming into the program. How do you, is culture? I mean, I imagine it's really important to you. How do you build it, and how does it drive performance with so much turnover in different bodies coming in every year?
Well, I think it's the buzzword of college athletics right now. There's those things that everybody says when somebody gets a new job. It's culture. We're going to play fast. We're going to, we're going
It's new job bingo right there. You got it. Got it.
to play. Yeah, exactly. I think it's important. This is what I've said for a number of years now. And I really, really believe this. I think a culture drives your program, and I think your relationships drive your culture. And so I think you've got to understand how you're going to create those relationships, and then how it's going to drive your culture and what you're going to believe. And so we've spent, over the years, we've spent an enormous amount of time kind of developing what we think is important to our program and what we think works in our program. And so our guys, we're trying to drive that culture through the relationships that we keep with our players every single year. And so, we got to keep getting better at that. We got to keep growing that and developing. But we really believe in that because we believe it sets the tone for our ability to be unselfish, to play together, to have good chemistry on both ends of the floor, because we believe that. And those things can drive championship teams when they're talented enough and when the guys like playing with each other and all, those things considered.
I would imagine that some schools or coaches that are used to having players around for 3 or 4 years, and more of that, slow cooker way of having culture grow. It's just always been this way. We have younger players that watch older players, and they learn, and then those younger players become older, and they in turn teach. But now, if culture isn't something that is important to you, or that you believe in and that you're teaching, I would imagine it's harder now. And you kind of alluded to it earlier, these 15 and 15 teams that just they seem to don't gel or believe in what the overall mission is. You got to be really intentional now, right?
Yeah, you do. You have to be intentional. You got to look at it from both sides. I've had a unique perspective for 23 years because, like I tell people, I have a built-in clinic every year if I want one, because I have so many Division I guys that come through our gym to recruit. If I want to throw a topic out like or rebounding, or if I want a defensive transition, I've got an unlimited source of people that I can say, hey, you have to talk basketball when you come in to recruit our teams. Well, I also do that with how people recruit our players and their recruiting philosophies. I do that with their culture and how they run their programs. Culture leaks. Your culture will leak every single day. So if you've got a kid around for 3 or 4 years, how do you keep your culture fresh? Because that kid could get bored with your culture too, which is why you're seeing some of this transfer portal stuff.
Mm,
So I think the balance that you've got to find as a coach is, how do I create a culture every year that keeps people excited about what they're doing? And if you're at a blue blood, let's face it, it's easy.
yeah.
Those guys aren't having that same culture problem because of what they're playing for every year and what the expectation is and the
Yeah.
amount of fans that sit in the stands and the pride of the school and all those things combined. But if you're at a general school, you've got to balance that stuff. You've got to find a way to keep things fresh. You got to find a way to help develop culture. And I think the way you do that, to answer the question I'm bringing up, is that you've got to grow leaders. You've got to grow guys that in their first 2 years they're learning, and then in their last 2 years they're leading, and they're becoming the guys that are teaching it. And the
Mm,
greatest programs that we've seen, I think that's what you watch the most of. Now, with the portal, how do you do that? Because they're not going to be there those last 2 years because they're going somewhere else.
yeah.
The turnover is a lot more. Your culture is going to look a little different. It's going to feel a little bit different, I believe, and it's going to be interesting to see how that matures. I think we're all dealing with it right now, and I think that's why you're seeing the records that you've seen this year while these coaches adapt a little bit.
Yeah. And I think every coach would say they understand that culture is important and that it does ultimately lead to winning and success. The better that you have, the more chances or opportunities. But I think now the challenge is, like to your point, when a kid comes into a blue blood, they don't really care about the culture because they know what they're going to get out of just being in that program. Well, now culture is more important than ever. How can we make our players understand that it's going to benefit them individually, being a part of that and learning it? That's like the secret sauce, because instead of just, guys, listen, this is our culture, do it or else go somewhere else, they'll go somewhere else. So,
Yeah.
hey, this is our culture and this is how it benefits you individually. So then I think it makes us as coaches reevaluate our culture, like take it down to the individual level, but knowing that if we build them up like this, it'll still spread and ultimately help our overall theme of winning.
Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Hard to do though, because I think in the past, like to me, culture has always been these kind of selfless ideas that if it's countercultural, a lot of the things like selflessness, humility, all these things, like if your culture is you're going to be a millionaire, well, sign me up. Like I
Yeah.
can't wait for that. But what if
Yeah.
it's something else? Like I don't know. I think that's the challenge.
I think so. I think, the culture becomes, at our level, the culture is, what do you want? So if you look at me and you tell me
Yeah.
you want to be a mid-major Division I player, well, here's the mid-major Division I standards. If you're not going to live up to those standards, then you can't tell me you want to be a mid-major player. And so I think, everything is not, I don't know if everything is the right word. There's most things in our business that are uh, performance driven. You've
Yeah.
got to perform to get, whether it's going to be NIL money or whether it's going to be the scholarships or whether it's championships. I mean, that all that stuff is performance driven. And so I think a lot of these young men, since we're talking about men's basketball that are coming out, you can talk about women also, but all these people that are coming out of high school right now and coming out of COVID and had a couple years where they weren't taught they weren't taught in person. They weren't
Yeah.
in class. They weren't in front of their coach every day. Those people they're not as performance driven as they once were. And
Hmm.
we're having to help them learn how to be performance driven. And there we go back to my philosophy of you're in college to learn how to learn. You're not in college to regurgitate information. And it's one of the core elements of who we are is that you have to learn how to learn. And so that's just, we talk about it all the time.
And I don't know if this is already happening, but it would make sense if I was a D1 coach or at any different level trying to navigate my way through what the landscape looks like today. I'd be reaching out to guys like you that you've been doing this for years. Like this isn't new to you.
Right.
The fact that every year we've got a lot of new bodies in. So yeah, you've already been experimenting and figuring out how do we get these guys in this amount of time to buy in and play. It just makes sense to reach out to guys like you.
Well, I think I don't disagree with that. And I think you'll see more, maybe more junior college coaches on staffs at the Division I level. Um, some of that stuff. I think some of the things I like. I try to tell coaches a lot that are coming. Half of being real, and maybe half's not right, but half of being successful is knowing what not to do, not
Mm.
just what to do. And so if you can find somebody on your staff or that's been through culture or been through the recruiting process and you can eliminate some of the work and say, look, this isn't going to work. That's as beneficial to you as saying, look, I've got 10 ideas that are going to work because, you got to know what's going to fail. You got to know the things that don't work. And when you get past that stuff, then you put yourself on a faster growth plan.
If it's so important for us to have dynamic and again cultures, you could substitute that word standards, pillars, ways that you show up. That's just the buzzword. But
Yes.
what's one of your favorite activities or multiple activities? Because you mentioned life circles and things like that
Mhm.
to build your culture up.
We do a personality trait deal with our guys that's really, really good. Um, of course, we've stole it. It's not something that we created, and we've borrowed it and we use it. But early in the year, every year, I'll sit down with our team, and we're fortunate we can bring our guys in July. So we don't do it in July when they're here, but shortly after the season in August when we get back and start school, late August, early September, we'll sit them down and we'll do this little personality inventory, and we'll have them do it on themselves, and then we start talking about putting everybody into a category, me included, the assistant coaches, everybody that's in the room, and we start talking about the different personalities that are out there and how to interact with those type personalities and how they receive information the best. And so I really like it because it lets me look at this kid across the room from me and go, oh man, he's not me. He's totally different than I am. And whether it's an international kid that has different morals and a different, maybe he's Muslim. We've had Muslims on our team, and so it just helps them. I try to identify that, and ultimately down the road we treat each other differently, or not. Difference, not the word. We treat each other appropriately to what you receive best, and it really helps me. I'm a personality guy. I think I've told you that. I want to have good relationships. We believe relationships drive our culture. I meet with our team, our scholarship guys, every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday of every week. So I filter through our
Wow.
entire team once every 2 weeks. I do two guys Tuesday, two guys Wednesday, two guys Thursday, and then I do the other six the next week. And so I filter through our team. So you meet with me for 30 minutes once every 2 weeks at least. And during that stretch of time, we talk about a lot of things. We talk about, of course, basketball is going to come up, but I don't want to keep it about basketball. We talk about families, we talk about academics, we talk about, you know, I stole this one time. I'll ask them one time throughout the year. I'll say, hey, what do you want Christmas to look like when you're 30 years old and you're married and you got two kids? Because they don't know. They look at you like you're crazy. They
Yeah.
look at you like, oh, Coach, I didn't even thought, but I want you to think about that. Because if you're not aspiring to be to that person, if you're not thinking about that a little bit, then how are you growing? Why are you're not growing at the rate you want to grow? And so I just think and I don't beat it up. We don't spend a lot of time on it, but I just throw it at them because I want to challenge them with a different thought process, a different learning environment, and those rooms, when they're in the room with me during that time, look, it's their safe space with me. They can ask me any question they want. They can talk about basketball. Why am I not playing more? It gives them room to visit with me about things that are on their mind. And then we always end it the same way. And I just tell them, how can I help you? What can I do to make things better? And if they don't hear those things, if the only time they ever spend time with me is between the blue lines at practice every day, then, we're a very challenging basketball program. We're trying to play at a very elite level. And so, everything is competitive at practice. And so all they see is a competitive personality, and they don't necessarily get to know the person.
Yeah, only a small part of the relationship can really be built between those blue lines. Like a small part. It's going to be very transactional at that practice, but then you can fill in those gaps or the larger part by those meetings. And man, I really appreciate how intentional you are. That's 30 minutes with each guy, over those two weeks, and then cycling through. Golly, the compound effect of that throughout the season, that's a lot of valuable time where I imagine you probably sidestep a lot of landmines because the conversation, like a lot of times when frustration really builds up, it's been happening for a long period of time and finally erupts at the worst moment. Well, by those constant conversations through and allowing them to ask questions, you probably get to sidestep a lot of those.
We hope so. That's part
or prevent. Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to, we're wanting to get to that point where, they're able to do that. This year's team was a little difficult. I really struggled to connect with this team. We still won 21 games. We had a good year on the court, but I found myself having to work really hard with some of this group, and that's been interesting because we're coming off 2 back-to-back championships and a 31 win season. And so you kind of have this feeling that let's go, everything's going to keep
rolling. Yeah.
And we had a group of freshmen this year that it just was a little more difficult than it has been in the past. And, that happens. I mean, it's going to be that way. We'll learn from it, all of us, me included. I mean, I've got some things that I've written down that I'm going to really work on in May and June this year, and try to beef up the life circle and beef up those individual meetings that can help me navigate and work with those guys, especially these COVID kids that are still coming out of high school. I think they've been very, very, they've been allowed to be very, very selfish. And I don't try to say that in a negative way, other than they just haven't been demanded to branch out a whole lot. And so I'm not trying to say that they're selfish because they've chosen to be. I think they're selfish because of the environment that they've been in. And so we're going to have to try to help pull some of that out of them.
That's a great reminder too, that as coaches, to be careful just to assume that past success, past culture, past relationships means that next year's is going to be identical to that, or we're just going to be able to almost go 2.0 with this thing, blind carbon copy. The coach at Jesuit, Chris Hill, had a great reminder. He's just said he starts every season as if it's brand new, brand new relationships. We got to put culture in again, but then to your point, I think you can kind of blend that with what you said but still keep it fresh and new. And because you're right, the moment that you think that you've arrived in anything, culture, training, or diets, you can relax and pause, you're already moving the opposite direction. But I thank you for that reminder.
Absolutely.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Ballogy. Manage and measure your players' skill development and increase accountability year-round utilizing the Ballogy app. Boost inter-squad competition with drills backed by the National High School Basketball Coaches Association, including a 40-shot Ballogy skills assessment. Please visit ballogy.com/teams for information on how you can provide this resource for your team. Tell me a little bit about the personality trait inventory that you do.
It's got 4 different segments to it. It's got we stole it from God, I can't even think of the guy's name, but it's a Baylor thing that we had borrowed from the Baylor guys during the COVID years.
Hmm.
I got real intentional about studying it when I saw them do it and talk about it. Alvin Brooks and I talked about it a little bit. Bill Peterson and I talked about it a little bit, and we just kind of worked it into what we do. And it just kind of like I said earlier, it just kind of lets the guys understand more about their personality. Like whether you're, I can't even remember all the different categories, but whether you're an A type personality and you're a driver and you're out in front and you're going to be the guy that goes and does everything, or whether you're more of a laid back guy, a compliant guy, you're going to do exactly what you're supposed to, but you're not going to give a whole lot more than exactly what you're supposed to. This is who I am, coach, and this is what you're going to get, but you're going to get it every day. And that consistency could be great. If it's enough, that consistency is fantastic.
Yeah.
If it's not enough, then you're going to find a lot of frustration in your life because there's going to get days that you get exposed because you're not doing enough. There's the guys that are very organized, that are very, they're going to do exactly what you tell them to do. So if you give a set play, they're going to be exactly right, and they're going to do exactly what they're supposed to do. But their creativity may not be there. They may not be a person that can demand the ball and go make plays at the end of a shot clock because that's not who they are. They're going to run the play exactly what coach said, and so it starts letting them feel and there's a lot of things about that personality test that says you can have a dominant personality, and then you can kind of have a 2.0 on the court. You might be a little bit different than who you
Hmm.
are off the court. And so you got to start finding all those different dynamics and putting them together. And it helps you understand yourself, but also in turn, it helps me understand Johnny over here, who's my teammate. And it helps me understand that I'm sitting in a timeout and I can't yell at this kid, because if I yell at him, his response is going to be to shut down as opposed to listen to me.
Yeah.
And then this other kid, if I need to get him going and I yell at him, he's going to respond to that. That's not going to be a problem for him, and he's going to bounce right back and be able to help us, and we're going to end up, we'll have a good positive turn if we need that in a game.
Is that a test that you can download? Is it something that you can share, or like how would it?
People could get if and I'll be happy if you want to email me. I'll be happy to share the notes that I have. Now I'm not telling you. I think there's also a video out. I might be able to even dig out the video and stuff. But I would be much more happy to do that for everybody. I'll be and share it, because then I can give the right. I can give the people props that have done it and
So
have.
yeah, let's do this. If you can find it, if you can find the video and share, I'll put it in the show notes
Okay.
when we put this episode out, because I do think that's like as part of the motivation of doing this, it's not just what you do, but how you do what you do. And so you do personality inventory. Awesome. But if I don't know, if I can't learn like specifically what you're doing, then I mean, I guess there are ways where you can just go find one. But if you happen to have one that works and you like, and golly, coach, I think that's huge. You nailed it, because you said it's important for the players to know more about themselves. Absolutely. That self-awareness is huge, but really important for us to know how to push, because that example of in a timeout, like that you're right on the money.
Right.
So we just talked about meeting with players, and I agree. The meeting with players and confidence are intertwined a little bit. So let's go into, so you have this great relationship with your players, and because of the meetings that you have, when you start to see their confidence, sometimes borderline insanity, but most of the time it droops and it's starting to take away from their performance. What do you do to help them build it up?
This game can be so rewarding, and then it can also expose you and make you feel terrible, or make you feel like you're not worthy. Um, our belief at Kilgore is, confidence comes from demonstrated ability, and so you have to work. And we've been very fortunate. I was told yesterday, our point guard this year was an All-American. second team All-American this year, and that's our sixth All-American in the last 10 years. And what I've tried to teach, and what I try to hold our guys accountable to is you got to become the best version of yourself. Not every one of my All-Americans has been like a high major player. One of them went to UTA, one of them went to Tulsa. One's been to Cincinnati, Ole Miss. So we've had a little bit of every level. But what they all did was they tapped themselves out as players. They were the best version of who they were. And that came from their work habits. It came from their time in the gym that they spent perfecting their craft, working on their craft. Well, that's where confidence comes from. So we talked about this earlier. You got to watch the game. You're going to gain more confidence because you're going to have a feeling of what you're supposed to do. You got to spend the time in the gym individually or with a second teammate and a coach, and you got to get through the workouts that bring confidence to footwork, shot selection, just the different things that you're going to be good at. So you're playing to your strengths on the court and doing what you do. And that's also what grows your game. It allows you to become better off the dribble, spot shooter, finishing around the basket, whatever that is that maybe it's ball handling. Maybe it's a defensive philosophy, and you've got to work on cutting a dribbler off, or help side defense, or whatever it is. You've got to spend the time doing the work, and then that's got to carry over to the team philosophies of what you're trying to do, and that comes into practice every day in what we're asking you to do and what we're coaching and what we're doing. It's my responsibility to put you in the best place to be successful. It's my responsibility to put the ball in the right guy's hands in the right times and let the right people play and give them some freedom and all that kind of stuff. You earn that freedom and you earn that confidence in what you do off the court. And so, truthfully, as we've been talking about truth all day, you can't fake that.
That's right.
You cannot not do the work or shortchange the work or take shortcuts and then be the elite player that you want to be. And I think that's what our program has evolved to. And some of the things that we're having to help kids understand when they get here is, if you're not going to do the work, then you better be careful what results you expect. And I used to do that with my two boys all the time. We'd go to the gym and we'd start shooting and they'd miss. And I'd be like, why are you upset? You haven't shot for 2 weeks.
I know exactly what you've been doing every day.
Yeah, I know you haven't been in the gym. So why are you upset about missing shots? Because you haven't been shooting shots. I said, if you want to put time in, then you can have a reaction.
And you earn the right to be a little frustrated when you know you put in the time. Yeah.
Yes. And so I just think it's all tied into, we call it time spent. I mean, it's all tied into your time spent. The more you stack days, good days, and the better your routine is, the more time you spend, the more confident you're going to be.
And then it's up to the players too, to make sure they're spending the time on the right things. And because they need to know what your expectations are. They need to know the style of play. It goes back to IQ and watching. They need to know where shots are going to come from. Sometimes as coaches, we can tell them that, but golly, how many times I have open gyms here, and I like to get, like, it's just freedom. They can train and do the things that they want, and they're working on things that in my head I'm thinking, that's not going to happen. Like, that's just not a situation we're going to be in. Yeah, but maybe in their select team it is, and the dangers too of, I mean, I love watching Steph Curry and Luka and all these things, but how often do we get to, like Luka does, stand in a split and go between our legs 5 times in space on a 7-footer and then step back 3 at the end of the shot clock? So are we working on playing on things? And part of that comes from having confidence in our coaches, and coaches knowing, or players knowing what is expected of them.
Matt, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday every week for 30 minutes. We tell our guys all the time, tell me the 5 things that make me play you. What are the 5 things that force me to put you on the floor and will not allow me to take you off the floor? And when you can convince your guys, I mean, like I tell this story. I had a young man play for me. His name was Chris Grisella, and he had a great 2-year career here. Back around 2013, he was on our championship team in 2013. And his sophomore year, he got off to just a roaring start. He was shooting it really well. He was just playing well. He was a great rebounder at about 6'3". He could really guard. And one of the guys on our team asked him, one of the freshmen said, "Why are you playing so well?" And he looked at him. I remember hearing his response, and he said, "I'm playing well because coach told me to do three things, and I do those three things every day. I feed the post, I make open shots, and I defend and rebound. And because coach has asked me to do that, that's what I'm focused on every day." And he was playing great. And that just lodged in my head, 10, 12 years ago. And I just thought, God, if you can teach a kid that my expectations it's just a handful. I'm not trying to make you do a dozen things great.
Here's a
I want,
notebook. Be great at all of these things. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I want five things. And if we can find the right complement of players on our team that all do some different things well, and they all do their five things really well, how hard are we going to be to beat?
Hmm.
How difficult is because we're going to play well every night. We're not going to beat ourselves because we're all playing to the best version of who we are. And so those meetings, although they encompass a lot of different areas, it gives me time to reinforce what five things are you playing? Here are the five things. What are you doing? And then if they don't like it, we can talk about it. We can talk about
It's
those
our
things.
safe space. We can bring that
Yeah,
up.
you're not. They don't always like it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but that's the truth too.
Yeah.
It's like I tell them, I'm telling you the truth of what we need right now.
And if they know that you care about them, I mean, then they shouldn't fear some ulterior motive or that you're against them in some way. Golly, you're both trying to get to the same place, which is the player in position to help the team win. And so there has to be that trust, Coach. When I love that you shared that, because when I hear it, I feel like there's a part of me, and maybe other coaches feel this way, of they hear you talk about that your players need to know those things that help. And I think, golly, I wish my players, like they should know you are. I kind of always turn it around. If the players don't know what things I expect from them to help us win and for them to play, it's not their fault. Like, that's my fault.
Yes.
How often as coaches do we not clearly define those three things, those five things, but yet we're frustrated. He doesn't crash. He will not crash. Coach, he won't crash. I don't understand why he didn't crash. Have you sat him down and said, "Listen, I will play you. You will earn more time. You will be hard for me to take off. You will add value to our team if you will offensively crash the boards, not 50% of the time, every possession."
Yeah.
I mean, golly, you set that standard. I don't know, Coach. Maybe they meet it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. As coaches, our teams are what we emphasize every day. I'm sure that's a cliche that's been used a lot in your.
But it doesn't mean it's wrong, Coach.
No, it doesn't. I mean, this game. It's like I try to tell our teams, every one of them, is that this game is there's not a lot of ways to win and a lot of ways to be successful. There's the path and there's the road and there's the way. There's different concepts and there's different styles and things like that, but you still have to do the work, and you still got to do the right work, and you got to have the right emphasis on the right things, whatever they are. And so, we've got our things that are non-negotiable in our program, just like everybody does, and you try to adhere to those and try to give your teams the best chance to win every night.
So based on the five things that you talk about, or 3 to 5, the specific areas that you let your players know, these are the things I need you to improve on, be great at. This will help us win in our time. I would imagine individual skill development is huge, and then also leads to that confidence. The time spent, like you talked about, how does individual skill work into your daily practice?
Our best players are in there probably at least 5 days a week, and more times six. Like Day, the young man that's going to Davion Thomas, the guy that's going to Cincinnati. During the season, it's 6 days a week. He works out twice a day. Excuse me. He gets in the morning with my assistant coach. They have a 45 minute workout, and then we have practice every afternoon. I have changed my practice schedules because of the amount of work that our guys are doing in the mornings by themselves. And so we don't incorporate a ton of individual stuff into practice
That makes
anymore
sense.
because our guys are all getting it in the morning. And so most of what we do in the evenings is team oriented, or the afternoons is team oriented stuff, because our guys are loving being in the gym with my coaching staff in the mornings, getting in their workouts, spending their extra time, getting that time spent. And then when they get to practice, it's easy to say, look, are you working on that in the morning? No. Then why are you doing that right now? Or you're doing this, it's going in more. We see a lot of production right now from you in this area. Why? And then they look at you and they go, because that's what I'm working on every day. Oh, okay. Let's correlate this. Let's make sure we understand that what you work on is what you're going to be good at. So let's play with the things that we think are going to be your biggest attributes. And I think the thing that, like most freshmen in our league, I think the biggest thing they don't understand how much more difficult it's going to be in our league. And so like they think they're going to come in and do everything they did in high school and be good at it. They're going to make every shot and they're going to dribble by everybody. And I got to remind them, look, you're not going to play against any freshmen. You're not going to play against any sophomores, and you're going to play against any juniors. So all those kids that were on the floor in high school that you got to blow past, they're not playing in this game anymore.
Yeah.
Because everybody's going to be as good as you are. And so they have to learn that you're talented enough to play at this level, but that doesn't mean you're good enough to be a great player at this level. You've got to earn that right. That comes through your work habits and you figuring out what your strengths are at this level. There's guys that come in here that blew by everybody in high school, and then you get to this level and you really can't get by anybody, or it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
And you got to, wow, I got to figure out how to get this done. And so it's just a learning process, and it's a growth process. And, some of that is failure, and you got to help them through that part. You got to help them understand, look, I'm just not quite as talented at this. And I've got to sacrifice it for our team because we've got 3 other guys that are really good at it. So I don't need to be that person for our team.
I love that you mentioned that, because I think it's a part of that transition from high school to college that isn't talked about very much, is the fact that you might have to reinvent yourself. I went from the Colony High School where not between me and you, this is, I think some people that, but between us, coach, it was easy. I mean, playing for Coach Thomas, I had 2 future NBA players on my starting 5. Like, we were all D1 players. Like, it was the easiest time, and offensively things just came. It was just they were a step slow, or my IQ, I could see things, and the skill. Well, I got to Baylor and I realized real quick, all of these dudes are bigger, faster, stronger, and a lot of them are more skilled. So I can't just do the same things that I've done before. And in fact, if you would have known me as a high school player to what I finished as in college, it was almost 2 extremes different, where I became Mr. Hustle twice. I don't say that like at the time I didn't value that very much. I actually thought it was the award you give to the guy where there's no awards left. Like, what are we going to give Matt? Give him Mr. Hustle. But now I'm proud of it. But I became the defensive stopper dude that in high school, I never took charges. I didn't dive on the floor. I was an offensive player, but it comes down to, okay, how badly do you really want to remain where you are? And how badly do you really want to get on the floor? Because you have to sometimes redefine, where is there a need? Okay, he's faster than me and a better ball handler. He's a better shooter than me. Well, maybe there's a need for a little toughness and some defense and some rebounding and a charge taker or a spirit guy. I'll fill that need. Yeah, it seemed to work out for me, but I don't feel like that's talked a lot or about it with high school players.
I just I don't disagree with that. I think the thing is a high school player, they just haven't learned how to tap themselves out. They don't know how much more they have in them. And so when you get to our level or the college level or Division I or whatever it is, you're starting to pull them in a direction that they're not even sure what they have left in that point. Like we look at our guys, I look at a number of them, quite honestly, in those meetings early in the year and say, you don't even have a clue how good you can be. You just don't understand it yet. You haven't been pushed to a level that is going to show you what more work and more time and what more skill will give you, and you just said it, how different of a player you'll be at the end of your 4-year college career than what you were when you walked in as a high school senior. And so I just think, well, that's why we spend so much time talking about growth,
Yeah.
becoming the best version of yourself. Are you pushing yourself as hard as you can? How competitive can you be on a daily basis?
Yeah, Stan Bonowitz at Concordia called it gassing out. Like you got to gas out. You got to reach that limit. And I'll have parents here sometimes ask, why don't we have more players from Grapevine Faith that want to play in college? It's not that we don't have guys that could. Well, it goes back to your very first point. Do they love the level that loves them? Most likely, no. They can afford to. They have the academics to go anywhere they want. And so they choose that, which is fine. But maybe another reason why not every high school player plays in college is to that point you just made, is that they don't gas out. Either they know that they're not reaching their limit, or they're unwilling to go there because it's hard work. Like it's hard to that term 100%, giving your very, very best. There's sacrifice involved with that. Like it is difficult to do, and not every person is willing to do that. And it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, like they're less than because of that. But why is the game of musical chairs so extreme? Because it's really hard to get there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you find your love for the game
Yeah.
because,
Yep.
because if at this point you think you like it, if you go to college and you want to get your college paid for, and that's really all that matters to you, is you get a scholarship and get your college paid for, and you walk in my office and say, Coach, I want to be a mid-major Division I player. Those two things they contradict each other. That's not the same thing. You're really, because you're not willing to work really hard to be mid-major. You just want your college paid for. And so when you're dealing with truth, when you're dealing with the absolute truth, your path to being successful in college as an athlete is tapping yourself out. It's being the best version of yourself so that you can compete at a high level daily. And that consistency is what's going to make you good.
Yeah.
And we try to let our guys know, even in practices, look, you had a great day today. And I know you feel really, really good about that day, but that day doesn't make you high major or mid major or low major. That day just shows you the potential that you have to be. If you can do that consistently, then you're going to change the level of where you're at. And it's who you are daily. It's what you do daily that that sets you apart, or can set you apart from everybody else.
And I don't mean to, like, I think that with that, if not that parent, but if a parent asks that question, or just recognizes the fact that, all these are good high school players, why are they not? And I think when a player, they're midway through their senior season, realizes themselves that they don't love the game that much. They like it. They like being a high school player. They want to maximize that experience. But then, you know what, when they think about, or look into the future a year from now, and they're not waking up early to train every day, they don't have that pressure. They don't have to put on a uniform, and they're okay with that. Man, I really appreciate that. Like, I appreciate that self-awareness over I don't mean poser like in a negative way, but the guy that doesn't realize how far they are from gassing out or maxing out, but still thinks that they should be going and playing somewhere. Like, I think that I appreciate those players that, Coach, listen, I'm going to give you my very, very best, but this is it. I'm excited to go on to something else, man. Tip my hat to you. You figured it out, because some guys get like that. I'm sure you've seen it. The idea of being a college basketball player sounds so nice and good, but the reality of what it takes, it's just different.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It is. I mean, you said the word. It's the sacrifice that it takes, and it is. It's a sacrifice. It's sacrifice if you have a girlfriend. It's sacrifice with academics and making sure you're staying on top of your academics. It's sacrifice with the extra workouts. It's sacrifice with the travel and how you take care of your body, how you eat and sleep and rest and hydrate yourself, and so all those things become really, really important, and they've got to take precedent in your life. And it's a lifestyle. It's not just when you're in high school, it's a 2.5 hour commitment after school every day to be a high school player. And some guys go on and get some extra training that want to be college and that kind of stuff. But really, your high school career's 2.5 hours after school every day. Show up, and if your high school coach is really good, he has you watch some film and do for some different things. But when you get to college, it's extra workouts, it's training room, it's how you eat, it's all these things magnified times 10. And that starts separating the love. It starts separating who enjoys it, and who really loves it and is committed to it. And you can't get mad at young men that decide that it's not that important to them. You can't. It's like you said, you tip your hat, you say thank you for doing what you did, and you've learned a lot about yourself, and that's great, because that's what life's about at this point in your stage and your age. And they've got to go figure out what makes them happy. I mean, I told my boys, they both played for me, but I told both of them early in life, I don't care if you play basketball or not. That's not the goal here. The goal is for you to be happy and to chase your dreams. And that's sort of one of the things we want. We want our guys to graduate. We want them to grow. We want them to be in a championship culture, and we want them to chase their dreams. And I want my sons to chase their dreams, regardless if that includes basketball or not.
Coaches, the Jamodi podcast is powered by Shoot 360. The future of basketball has arrived in Dallas-Fort Worth. Shoot 360 combines the latest sports technology with the fundamentals of basketball skill development. The result is a one-of-a-kind video game-like basketball program designed to improve your shooting, dribbling, and passing. Visit shoot360dfw.com to learn more and register for your free 1-hour workout evaluation. Shoot 360, the future of basketball is here. Coach, the speed round. Quick questions.
Okay.
First thing that pops in your head, we'll know you even better after this.
Okay. All right.
Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, chocolate chip.
Greatest shooter of all time?
I grew up with Mark Price, so I'm not going to stray very far from that name right there.
Coach, I used to go to Word of Life basketball camp. They had it in New York State, and the Price family ran it. Brent Price was actually there. Mark was never there, but his dad and all them, I've been a Brent Price fan for a long time.
Yeah. I grew up with that family. I'm really close. Brent and I are really close in age.
That's awesome.
We graduated about the same time. He was a couple years older than I was, so we spent a lot of time in the gym and stuff. And so Denny and Ann and Matt and Mark, they're great people. Great people.
That's incredible. Do they still do those camps? Do you know? Or
Brent does some stuff through the it's now the Denny Price YMCA in Enid, Oklahoma, and he still does some stuff through there. And Mark is still running camps. I don't know if it's all over the country per se, but he's still doing stuff in the summers, and has been in the NBA for a little while, coached at college for a little while.
Yeah.
But Matt's the only one that's not around it per se, and Brent's not around it a lot, but he's around it some.
Texting or talking?
Talking.
Best basketball movie of all time?
I'd say either Hoosiers or White Man Can't Jump. It depends upon whether you want to go with an old school theme or whether you want to go with just a fun, lighthearted one. But I love both those movies.
Awesome. For high school, shot clock or no shot clock?
I think they're one. I think it needs to be adopted. I don't think it needs to flirt with 30 seconds. I think it needs to be more like 45 or something like that. I don't think you can ask those kids to play way faster because they're not as talented as a college level kid is. They don't think the game. They don't practice the game. But I think there needs to be something that regulates speed of play. And so I think it needs to be more like a 45-second shot.
Yeah, that wouldn't alter the game a ton. It would just keep away from one of my buddies is high school coach Cole Johnson around here at Frisco Legacy. And I always get mad at him when he runs the second half. He'll start with a minute-long possession. Now you could say, well, defensively do something. Well, we're playing good defense. They're just content running there and never looking to score. So anyway, it would hurt that. But favorite holiday?
God, I just don't get holiday. I think I have some, but I don't ever get the holidays. I
A
just
lot of
get those.
coaches say 4th of July because of that
Yeah,
fact.
exactly. And it crossed my mind. I mean, I would say that's probably it right now.
Yeah.
Would be the 4th of July because the other three biggies are I just don't get them very often.
Yep. Oh, you're up 3. You're on defense with 7 seconds left. Do you foul or no foul?
We foul. We won a championship 2 years ago with that philosophy. We were up. If there's a little bit more time on the clock, I think we had 2 fouls to give, and we had just hit a free throw to go up 1 in the finals of the region tournament to see who went to the national tournament. And we fouled up the length of the floor. We let them go 3 or 4 seconds and fouled, and then we did it again on the next inbounds play, and I think we cut about 7 or 8 seconds off of their ability to go score. And so I think my philosophy right now is as long as my team knows how to do it, as long as it's something we practiced and we're prepared to
Don't
do.
experiment with that.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that's, our philosophy would be go ahead and foul there.
You mentioned a book earlier in the talk, but what's one book that you would give someone?
Oh gosh, there are so many good ones. I just got done rereading the 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership from John Maxwell. I think it's fantastic. I think all 4 of the What Drive Winnings book. Jeff Jansen does a book. I think his book is how to create and sustain a championship culture. I love it.
What's his name?
Jeff Jansen is his name. Let me see if I can. I've got my phone right here with me, and sometimes I think I have a books category that I've kept. Yeah, here it is. All right, you want them? Here it is.
Yes, sir. Let's go.
Okay. So, Unscripted by Ernie Johnson is an unbelievable read.
Really?
From a personal standpoint. I love that book. Why the Best Are the Best by Kevin Eastman is a go-to. Good Leaders Ask Great Questions, John Maxwell. How to Build and Sustain a Championship Culture is Jeff Jansen. I just got done reading Winning. And so if you can read Winning and Relentless by Tim Grover, the guy that worked out Jordan and Kobe Bryant and Barkley and some of those guys, those are excellent. The Cubs Way, I can't remember who wrote it, is a really good book. And then I think I said the What Drives Leadership and stuff. I mean, those are some of my favorites. I keep them in my phone so when people ask, I can pull them up. And
I love that.
Some of the stuff that I've read that I really like.
I got 3 more, Coach. In basketball, who is the GOAT?
Michael Jordan. I think it rivals with Bill Russell, but I always say we do this. I've done this in my class before. I think it all boils down to what what drives. What are you equating who the greatest is of all time to? We all have different criteria. That's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah.
My criteria is winning. So I'm going with Bill Russell or Michael Jordan because those guys just won.
Yeah.
And so not to take away from anybody else because I think there was a lot of great players, but I'm going with the guys that won.
Your favorite place to travel?
My wife would tell you the beach. Because it's her favorite place to travel, so I just go.
And you're just going, but what if you actually got to choose? You actually get to play
wherever my wife goes is my favorite place.
You're wise, man. That's wise.
I am. I'm definitely a fair weather person. I'd rather be around warmth than I would like the snow or the beat or the those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm getting more and more into foreign travel. I think me going to see places with history, I'm kind of a history guy. So if I can get to Italy and Greece and Europe and some of those places, I think I would truly appreciate that now. Maybe not as much as I would have when I was younger. So,
all right, last one, Coach. Probably the most important. How many cups of coffee you drink every day?
0.
There's a lot of coaches that don't drink coffee, and I
may be hardwired into a Coke all day. So I mean,
so you're getting your caffeine. You're just not.
My caffeine is a Coke now. So I mean, during basketball season, I've been known to put away 3-4 Cokes a day. But I don't drink coffee. It's not something but during the off season, I try to get up and drink one Coke and maybe a little bit more, but I try to stay away from the caffeine,
Mm,
outside of the season, because I
yeah.
probably drink enough in season for the whole year.
It just, you're going to level out.
Trying to balance it. Yeah. I'm trying to balance it. So,
Coach, this was awesome, man. Like, really enjoyed from that one day watching you work with players, listen to you talk. Like, this was just your name was on my list of guys that I wanted to have this talk with. And thank you for sharing so much about your habits and your culture. Just really enjoyed it.
well, I appreciate it. I enjoyed today too a bunch, and I appreciate you having me on. And it's great to talk basketball anytime you can. So I've had a good time. Thank you.
If anybody has questions for, but like about that personality inventory or anything else, what's a great way to get in touch with you?
My email is Hoberecht. So it's BHOBERECHT at Kilgore.com. Just have them email me a question, whatever, about anything that we've talked about today or anything that's on your mind, and I'll be happy to share what we do and kind of what Kilgore has done in our program. And I'm at a point where I like to give back now. So we all get to different segments of our coaching career, and so if I can share anything, I'm more than happy to do it.
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the Jamodi podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.